sister betrayed me by sleeping with my fiancé. I refused to invite her to the wedding. My father demanded I make her maid of honor, claiming I was tearing the family apart. So I quietly canceled everything and married in secret without anyone knowing. Hello everyone. My name is Sarah. I'm 29 years old. And today I'm going to tell you about the ultimate betrayal by my own sister, the unbelievable response from my father, and how I ended up secretly eloping instead of having the dream wedding I had spent a year planning. This is a story about loyalty, favoritism, boundaries, and choosing your own happiness over family expectations. I never imagined that planning my wedding would lead to discovering my sister in bed with my fiancé, or that my father would somehow make me the villain in that scenario. But life has a way of showing you who people really are when you least expect it. Let me start from the beginning. I have one younger sister, Emma, who is 26. Growing up, we were close, or at least I thought we were. We shared secrets, supported each other through breakups and challenges, and I genuinely believed we had the kind of sister bond that would last forever. Emma was always the more outgoing one, the life of the party, beautiful and charismatic in a way that drew people to her effortlessly. I was more reserved, focused on my career as a marketing manager, someone who preferred deep conversations with close friends over wild nights out. Our differences never seemed to be a problem until they were. 2 years ago, I met David at a work conference. He was charming, intelligent, driven, everything I had been looking for in a partner. We clicked immediately, and within 6 months we were living together. A year into our relationship, David proposed, and I was ecstatic. I had found my person, my future, and I couldn't wait to start planning our life together. The engagement period was wonderful at first. We set a date about a year out to give us time to plan the wedding properly, save money, and enjoy being engaged without rushing into things. I envisioned a beautiful ceremony with about 150 guests, my sister as my maid of honor, and a celebration of love surrounded by everyone who mattered to us. I asked Emma to be my maid of honor about a month after the engagement, and she accepted enthusiastically, or at least she seemed enthusiastic at the time. Looking back now, I can see signs I missed, little moments that should have raised red flags but didn't because I trusted her completely. Emma started spending more time at our apartment, often showing up when I was working late or traveling for business. She and David became friendly, which I encouraged because I wanted my future husband and my sister to get along. I thought it was sweet that they were bonding, that David was making an effort to include Emma in our lives. I was so naive, so trusting, so completely blind to what was actually happening right under my nose. The discovery happened 7 months before the wedding. I had been on a business trip that was supposed to last 3 days but got cut short when our main client meeting was rescheduled. I came home a day early, excited to surprise David with an early return. I walked into our apartment around 2 in the afternoon, calling out to let him know I was home, but there was no answer. I heard sounds coming from our bedroom, and my first thought was that maybe he was watching TV or on a phone call. I opened the bedroom door, and my entire world shattered in an instant. There was David in our bed with Emma, my fiancé, and my sister, naked and entangled, frozen in shock as they realized I was standing there. The next few minutes are honestly a blur in my memory. I remember screaming. I remember Emma scrambling for her clothes while trying to explain, trying to say it wasn't what it looked like, which was absurd because it was exactly what it looked like. David was saying my name, trying to approach me, but I backed away like he was a stranger because in that moment he was. The man I thought I knew, the man I was planning to marry and build a life with, would never do this to me. I left the apartment immediately, got in my car, and drove to my best friend's house where I completely broke down. The betrayal was twofold and therefore twice as devastating. My future husband and my own sister had violated my trust in the most intimate and unforgivable way possible over the next week. Both Emma and David tried repeatedly to contact me, leaving voicemails and text messages full of apologies and excuses. Emma claimed it had only happened once, that they had both been drinking, that it was a terrible mistake she regretted immediately. David said similar things, begging for forgiveness, saying he loved me and wanted to work through this. But I learned from mutual friends that this wasn't a one-time drunken mistake. They had been carrying on an affair for at least 3 months, maybe longer. There had been multiple encounters, sneaking around behind my back, lying to my face while sleeping together and betraying me in the worst way imaginable. The version of events they were trying to sell me was just another lie on top of all the others. I ended the engagement immediately. I returned David's ring, moved my things out of our apartment with the help of friends while he was at work, and made it clear that we were done and there would be no reconciliation. As for Emma, I told her I never wanted to see or speak to her again. She had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed, broken trust that couldn't be repaired. In my mind, I no longer had a sister. She had made her choice when she decided to sleep with my fiancé, and the consequence of that choice was losing me forever. This is where my father enters the story in the most infuriating way possible. My parents divorced when I was 12, and my father remarried a few years later. Emma and I were primarily raised by our mother, seeing our father every other weekend and holidays. Dad always had a soft spot for Emma, his baby girl, and over the years I had noticed that she seemed to get away with things that I never could have. When the affair came to light, I expected my father to be as disgusted and angry as I was. Instead, his response was to try to mediate and encourage reconciliation between Emma and me. He called me about 2 weeks after the discovery, saying that Emma was devastated by my refusal to forgive her, that she had made a mistake but she was still my sister, and that families should stick together through difficult times. I was astounded by his response. I explained to him that this wasn't a small mistake or a simple disagreement. Emma had systematically betrayed me with the man I was about to marry, had lied to me repeatedly, and had shown no real remorse beyond being upset that there were consequences for her actions. I told Dad that I had every right to cut her out of my life, and that I expected him to support my decision and understand why I couldn't have a relationship with her after what she had done. His response was to tell me I was being too harsh, that Emma was young and made a bad choice, and that I should be the bigger person and find it in my heart to forgive her because that's what family does. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It was like he couldn't see or didn't want to see the severity of Emma's betrayal. He kept minimizing it, calling it a mistake, acting like I was being unreasonable for not immediately welcoming her back into my life with open arms. We argued, and I eventually told him that my decision was final, and if he couldn't respect that, we would need to take a break from our relationship as well. He seemed shocked that I would draw that line, but I was firm. I needed people in my life who would support me, not pressure me to reconcile with someone who had hurt me so profoundly. Now, you might be wondering what happened with the wedding at this point. After I ended things with David, I was obviously not getting married to him. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. About 3 months after the breakup, I reconnected with my college boyfriend, Marcus. We had dated for 2 years in college and had an amicable breakup when we graduated and took jobs in different cities. Over the years, we had occasionally kept in touch through social media, but nothing serious. When he heard through mutual friends about what had happened with David, he reached out to check on me, and we started talking regularly. Those conversations led to meeting up for coffee, which led to dating again. And we both realized that the connection we had in college was still there. Actually stronger than before because we were more mature and knew ourselves better. Marcus was everything David wasn't. He was honest, loyal, empathetic, and completely disgusted by what Emma and David had done. He supported my decision to cut Emma out of my life and never once suggested I should forgive her or reconcile. Within 4 months of reconnecting, Marcus proposed. I know it might seem fast to some people, but when you've already dated someone before, you skip a lot of the early relationship steps. We already knew each other's families, knew each other's habits and quirks, and we were both at a point in our lives where we knew what we wanted. I said yes immediately, and we decided to plan a wedding for about 8 months out. This time around, I was more cautious about who I told and how much information I shared. I didn't post about the engagement on social media, and I asked the friends and family I did tell to keep it quiet. I didn't want Emma finding out, and I certainly didn't want any drama as I tried to plan what should be one of the happiest events of my life. My mother knew and was thrilled for me, completely supportive and excited to help with planning. She'd been furious with Emma over the affair and had actually barely spoken to her since it happened, which Emma blamed me for, as if I had somehow forced Mom to take sides rather than her own actions causing the rift. I hadn't spoken to my father since our argument 3 months prior, but as the wedding planning progressed, my mother suggested I reach out to him to let him know I was getting married. She thought he would want to walk me down the aisle and that maybe enough time had passed that we could have a civil relationship, even if we weren't as close as before. Against my better judgment, I called him and told him about Marcus and the engagement. His first question, I kid you not, was whether Emma knew. Not congratulations, not expressing happiness for me, but immediately asking about Emma. I told him no, Emma didn't know, and she wouldn't be invited to the wedding given what she had done. That's when things went completely off the rails. My father became insistent that I needed to invite Emma to the wedding. He said she was my sister, that enough time had passed, that holding a grudge for this long was unhealthy, and that excluding her from my wedding would cause a permanent rift in the family. I reminded him that Emma had caused the rift, not me, by sleeping with my fiancé. His response was that I was marrying someone else now, so clearly I had moved on, and therefore I should be able to forgive Emma and include her in my special day. The logic was so twisted and infuriating I could barely respond. The fact that I had found happiness again didn't erase or diminish what Emma had done. It didn't mean I owed her forgiveness or a place in my wedding, but my father didn't stop there. Over the next few weeks, he called me repeatedly, each time escalating his demands. First, it was just that Emma should be invited as a guest. Then it was that she should be included in the bridal party. Finally, and this is where I nearly lost my mind, he insisted that Emma should be my maid of honor. His reasoning was that having her as maid of honor would show everyone that our family was united, that we had moved past the incident, and that it would be a beautiful gesture of forgiveness and sisterly love. He actually said it would make the wedding more meaningful if I publicly forgave Emma in this way. I was absolutely speechless. My father wanted me to reward Emma's betrayal by giving her the place of honor at my wedding, to stand beside me as I married someone else as if nothing had happened, as if she hadn't destroyed my previous engagement by sleeping with my fiancé. When I refused, Dad became angry and accusatory. He said I was being selfish and vindictive, that I was holding on to anger that was poisoning me, that I was breaking up the family over something that happened almost a year ago and should be forgiven by now. He said that if I truly loved Marcus and was happy, I wouldn't still be so bitter about what happened with David. He actually tried to use my new relationship and happiness against me, as if being happy meant I had no right to maintain boundaries with someone who had betrayed me. The phone calls became more frequent and more heated. My father started trying to guilt trip me, saying that he was caught in the middle between his 2 daughters, that Emma was heartbroken about being excluded, that our estrangement was tearing him apart and making family gatherings awkward. He painted himself as the victim in this situation, completely ignoring the fact that there was an actual victim here, me, the person who had been betrayed. He also started making threats, subtle at first but becoming more direct. He said that if I didn't invite Emma to the wedding, he wouldn't come. He said he wouldn't walk me down the aisle, wouldn't give a father of the bride speech, wouldn't participate in any way because he refused to be part of an event that excluded his other daughter. I tried to stand firm, explaining repeatedly that my wedding was about Marcus and me, about celebrating our love and commitment, and that I had every right to decide who would be there. I told him that Emma's presence would ruin the day for me, that I couldn't enjoy my wedding knowing that the person who had betrayed me in such a fundamental way was in the room, watching, pretending everything was fine. But my father wouldn't hear it. He kept pushing, kept insisting, kept trying different tactics to wear me down. Other family members started getting involved too. Relatives on my father's side, who Emma had apparently been crying to, telling her version of events where she was the remorseful sister trying to make amends and I was the cruel, unforgiving older sister holding an unreasonable grudge. The stress was overwhelming. What should have been a joyful time planning my wedding to a man I loved had become a nightmare of family drama and pressure. I was having anxiety attacks, not sleeping well, and crying regularly over the situation. Marcus was incredibly supportive, but even he was getting frustrated with my father's behavior and the toll it was taking on me. We had long discussions about what to do, whether I should just uninvite my father as well, whether we should try to have the wedding with all this conflict hanging over it, whether it was worth trying to salvage any kind of relationship with my dad. Then, about 2 months before the wedding date, my father did something that became the final straw. He showed up at my apartment unannounced with Emma. He had apparently orchestrated this ambush, telling Emma that I had agreed to meet with her to talk, which was a complete lie. When I opened the door and saw them both standing there, I was furious. Emma immediately started her rehearsed apology, crying and saying how sorry she was, how she had made the worst mistake of her life, how she missed me and wanted her sister back. Dad stood there nodding approvingly, like this was a touching moment of reconciliation he had brilliantly arranged. I told them both to leave. Emma's apology meant nothing because it wasn't about genuine remorse. It was about her wanting to be comfortable again, wanting to attend the wedding, wanting things to go back to normal without actually addressing or taking full responsibility for what she had done. My father was angry at my response, said I was being cold-hearted, that Emma had humbled herself by coming here and apologizing and I couldn't even give her a chance. I said that showing up at my home unannounced with my betrayer wasn't giving me a chance. It was ambushing me and trying to manipulate me into forgiveness I didn't feel and reconciliation I didn't want. They finally left, but not before Dad said that if Emma wasn't invited to the wedding, he would make sure everyone in the family knew what kind of person I really was, how I could hold grudges and tear families apart over past mistakes. That threat was what made me realize something important. This wedding, the big celebration I had been planning with 150 guests, a venue, catering, flowers, all of it was going to be ruined by this drama. Even if I stood firm and didn't invite Emma or my father, the day would be overshadowed by their absence and the family gossip about why they weren't there. Some relatives would take sides, there would be whispers and judgment, and instead of focusing on marrying Marcus, I would be managing family politics and hurt feelings. The wedding that was supposed to celebrate our love would become a referendum on my decision to maintain boundaries with my sister. So Marcus and I made a decision that felt radical but also incredibly freeing. We decided to cancel the big wedding entirely. We would lose our deposits, disappoint some people, and have to deal with confusion and questions, but none of that mattered as much as protecting our actual marriage and our peace. We decided to elope, to get married in secret with just the two of us and an officiant, and tell everyone afterward when it was already done and there was nothing anyone could do about it. We started planning in secret. We told no one, not even my mother initially, because we didn't want any possibility of the information getting back to my father. We chose a date 3 weeks away, got our marriage license quietly, and booked a small ceremony at a beautiful location about 2 hours from where we lived. We hired a photographer to document the day, just for us, and we made plans for a honeymoon immediately after. For the big wedding that was supposed to happen, we created a cover story. I told my mother and the few friends who knew about the wedding date that we were postponing due to some complications with the venue, that we would reschedule for later in the year. Most people accepted this explanation without much question. The day we actually got married was one of the most perfect days of my life. It was just Marcus and me, no family drama, no pressure, no one making demands or trying to force reconciliation with people who had hurt me. We wrote our own vows, we cried happy tears, we promised to build a life together based on honesty and loyalty and respect, all the things that had been missing in my previous relationship. The ceremony was simple and intimate and absolutely perfect. We took beautiful photos, went to an amazing dinner, and then left for a 2-week honeymoon in Greece that we had secretly booked. We had agreed to tell people after we returned from the honeymoon, to give ourselves time to fully enjoy being newlyweds without any outside noise or drama. When we got back, we posted a simple announcement on social media with a photo from our wedding day, announcing that we had gotten married and were now husband and wife. The response was immediate and varied. My mother called right away, and I could tell she was hurt that I hadn't included her, but when I explained everything that had been happening with Dad and Emma, she understood why I had made the choice I did. She said she wished I had told her so she could have been there, but she supported my decision and was happy that I had married Marcus without all the stress and conflict that would have come with a big wedding. My father's response was explosive. He called me screaming about how I had embarrassed him, how I had disrespected him by getting married without telling him, how he couldn't believe I would do something so selfish and thoughtless. I let him rant for a while and then calmly told him that this was exactly why I had eloped. His behavior over the past months, his demands that I forgive Emma and make her my maid of honor, his threats and guilt trips, had made it clear that a traditional wedding would be hijacked by drama that had nothing to do with my marriage. I told him that I chose my peace and my happiness over his need to pretend everything was fine with Emma, and that I didn't regret the decision at all. He said I had ruined any chance of reconciliation, that I had burned bridges that couldn't be rebuilt, that I had proven I was exactly the selfish person he thought I was. I responded that bridges built on the expectation that I forgive unforgivable betrayal weren't bridges I wanted to maintain. I told him that he had chosen Emma over me repeatedly, had minimized and dismissed my pain, and had tried to force me into a reconciliation I didn't want for his own comfort. His anger and disappointment were not my responsibility to manage, especially not at the cost of my own well-being. Emma also reached out, sending me a long message about how hurt she was that I had gotten married without even telling her, how she thought time would heal our relationship, and she was devastated to realize I had completely cut her out of my life. Her message was focused entirely on her feelings, her hurt, her devastation, with no real acknowledgement of what she had done to cause this rift. It was classic Emma, making herself the victim, unable or unwilling to see that her actions had consequences and that those consequences included losing her relationship with me. I didn't respond to her message. There was nothing to say that I hadn't already said a year ago when I ended our relationship. The extended family reactions were mixed. Some relatives were upset with me, saying I should have given people a chance to attend, that eloping was selfish and deprived family of being part of an important moment. Others, particularly those who knew the full story of what Emma had done, were supportive and understood why I had made the choice I did. My mother's side of the family was almost uniformly supportive, while my father's side was more divided. But here's what I realized: I didn't need everyone's approval or understanding. The people who truly loved me and wanted the best for me understood my decision, or at least respected it even if they didn't fully agree. The people who were angry were often the same people who had been pushing me to forgive Emma or who had minimized what she had done. It's been 6 months since Marcus and I got married, and I can honestly say I have no regrets about eloping, none. It was the best decision for us and for our marriage. We started our life together on our own terms, without compromise, without drama, without having to manage other people's feelings and expectations on what should have been our day. The money we saved from canceling the big wedding went toward our honeymoon and toward buying our first home together. We've created a beautiful life that's peaceful and drama-free because we've maintained firm boundaries about who gets access to our lives and our happiness. My relationship with my father is essentially non-existent now. We haven't spoken since the phone call after the elopement announcement. I'm sad about that in some ways, grieving the father I wish I had rather than the one I actually have, but I'm also at peace with it. He made his choice to prioritize Emma's comfort over supporting me through a traumatic betrayal. He made his choice to pressure me to forgive when I wasn't ready and might never be ready. Those were his choices, and I'm not responsible for them or for managing his feelings about the natural consequences of those choices. Emma has tried to reach out a few more times, always with messages focused on her feelings and her desire for reconciliation, never with any real accountability for the affair or acknowledgement of why I might never be able to trust her again. I've blocked her on most platforms at this point because I realized that every time I saw a message from her, it disrupted my peace and brought back painful memories. I don't wish her ill, but I also don't want her in my life in any capacity. That boundary is important for my mental health and for protecting my marriage. Marcus and I have talked extensively about the future, about what happens if there are family events where both Emma and I are invited. How we'll handle holidays, what we'll tell our future children about why they don't know their aunt. We've agreed that we'll be honest, but age-appropriate, that we'll never force a reconciliation that I don't genuinely want, and that our nuclear family, the one Marcus and I are creating, is our priority. His family has been wonderful, welcoming me completely and never pressuring me about my estranged relationships. Looking back on everything, I can see so clearly that my father's response to Emma's betrayal was about him. Not about me or about what was actually right or fair. He didn't want to deal with the discomfort of having daughters who weren't speaking. Didn't want to have to navigate family events with that tension. Didn't want to accept that one of his children had done something truly terrible to the other. It was easier for him to pressure me to forgive than to hold Emma accountable for her actions. And that choice, that consistent pattern of prioritizing his comfort over my healing, showed me that our relationship wasn't built on the foundation I thought it was. Do I think Emma and I will ever reconcile? Honestly, I don't know, and more importantly, I don't spend much time thinking about it. I've built a life that doesn't include her, and that life is happy and fulfilling. If she were to come to me years from now with genuine accountability, with real understanding of the harm she caused and no expectations of immediate forgiveness or reconciliation, maybe we could have some kind of conversation. But that would be years away at minimum, and it would require her to do work on herself that I'm not sure she's capable of or interested in doing. For anyone listening to this who has experienced betrayal by someone close to them and is being pressured by family to forgive before they're ready or to reconcile when they don't want to, please know that you have every right to maintain your boundaries. Forgiveness is not a requirement, and it's certainly not something that can be rushed or forced. You're allowed to protect yourself from people who have hurt you, even if those people are family. The people who truly love you will respect your boundaries and support your healing process, not pressure you to sweep trauma under the rug for the sake of appearances or their own comfort. My name is Sarah, I'm 29 years old, and this is the story of how my sister's betrayal and my father's response led me to elope and create the wedding and marriage I actually wanted, free from drama and manipulation. I chose myself, I chose my husband, and I chose peace over performing reconciliation for other people's benefit. It was the right choice then, and it remains the right choice now. Thank you for listening to my story.